Hi guys, in today's video I am going to thrift flip 3 separate items from recent thrift hauls. So if you are in the mood for a great craft video, stick around. Okay, so I've had this tin for quite a while, but I'm only going to use the bottom part and not the lid. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a couple coats of Waverly plaster chalk paint. Just want to make sure that it's covered well. And I'm going to add these carrot picks that I got from Dollar Tree. And this graphic that I got online. Everything I use in these crafts, I will put links for in the description box. So it's really just about painting the can, and you want to do even coats and go in the same direction, either up and down or around the circumference of the can. It gives you the least amount of brush strokes. Okay, so here I'm just taking my heat gun, trying to speed up the drying process. Otherwise, this video will take 10 years. So this is just a cheap one. I think it cost me $20 like many years ago. Now I am going to use a foam applicator, and I'm going to dab on the second coat of paint. Dabbing it on gives it a little bit of texture, and it covers up brush strokes. I have not mastered the art of not getting brush strokes. So this is my go-to to cover them up. I'm sure there are other things that can be done, but this is what I do. I mean, I know you can sand it, but it seems if I sand, no matter what the grit is of the sandpaper, too much paint comes off. So, you know, guys, I'm still learning all of this, so I just do the best I can. Okay, so here I printed out 3 different sizes of my graphic because I wasn't sure what size I was going to need. I didn't measure. So this is the one I'll be using. So what I'm going to do is I am going to take my water pen. If you don't have one of these, all you need is a paintbrush and some water. Just dip your paintbrush in the water and go around your image. That way it makes it easier for you to tear it, because you don't want a straight edge on your image. You want it to be rough, and that way it blends in better when you put it on your project. So that's all I'm doing here is tearing out my image. Once I get the image taken out, or I should say ripped out, I will be decoupaging it to the front of my can. So what I wanted to mention is I have an inkjet printer. So there is a chance that the colors can bleed. So you wanna wait a couple of hours after printing out your image so that you don't have any issues with smearing of the ink. That is why I'm drying the edges of this with my heat gun, because what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take some Tim Holtz Distress ink and put it on the edges of the paper so that you don't see the white edge of the paper. And I'm using the walnut color ink. And I bought mine on Amazon. You can get them anywhere, Hobby Lobby, Joann's, Michael's. But I got mine on Amazon. I got a 4-pack, I think, for $21, which isn't bad at all. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm just inking up the edges of my image. And you also want to let this ink dry well before you Mod Podge it onto your can. Because if the ink is not dry, it will smear onto your can. Okay, so before I put on my Mod Podge, I am going to take this Varathane clear finishing wax, and I am going to seal my chalk paint. It's very important that you seal your chalk paint with either wax, Mod Podge, a clear sealer, because it can be activated with water. So you definitely have to seal chalk paint. And also, I am going to add a dark wax to this can. And if you don't put clear wax on first, your dark wax will be a lot harder to wipe off, and it will come out very dark. What you can do, however, if you forget to clear wax it first, if you put the brown wax on and it's too dark, you can take the clear wax and rub it on there, and it kind of acts like an eraser with the dark wax. So not to fear, there is always a solution. So yes, I'm putting on my clear wax. And then after I'm done with the clear wax, I will Mod Podge my label on. Now, what I decided to do, oh, nope, I guess I decided to put the dark wax on first. So we'll get that done, and then we'll do our Mod Podge. Okay, so now what I'm doing is I'm taking, I have this little wooden piece that I got at an estate sale, purposely for holding my rolling pins when I do them. And it comes in handy for this as well. So I'm deciding whereabouts on here I want to put my label. And rather than put the Mod Podge on the can, I use a DIY liquid patina for my my Mod Podge. I really love it. So I am going to instead paint the liquid patina on the back of the label and then put it on rather than put it on the can and then put the label on, because I don't want to have extra Mod Podge on my can, because I find it kind of like leaves a discoloration for some reason. So that's why I decided to just do it this way. And you don't want to put a ton of Mod Podge, but you do want to have a nice even layer, paying close attention to the edges of your image. All right, so we're gonna make sure. I have a terrible time sometimes getting things straight. It's just one of those things, you know. I'm looking at it to be even on the top and bottom, and then I don't pay attention to if it's straight. So now what I'm doing is I'm taking a piece of saran wrap that's balled up, and this helps me to smooth out the image, working from the center to the edges. And it helps get the wrinkles out, and you're less likely to tear your paper. This is a great hack. I don't know who thought of it, but it's fantastic. And this is what we have so far. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I am going to take some Dollar Tree floral foam, and I'm going to glue it into the bottom of the can. Now, sometimes I don't glue it in case somebody wants to, take it out and redo something else with it. But in this case, I decided to glue it because it is like an Easter decoration, and it's only going to be used at Easter time. So I decided to glue it in. Well, I shouldn't say it's only going to be used for Easter. I mean, it could be used for spring as well. So just want to make sure it's going to fit before I put the glue, and we're good to go. Okay. Looks good. Looks good. So next, what I am planning on doing is I am going to put some Spanish moss to cover the foam, but I want to wait until I have my other items glued first, because I want it to have a stable surface to be glued to, which would be the floral foam, and not being glued to the Spanish moss. So I'm going to start gluing in my items how I want them, and then we'll move on to the Spanish moss. Okay, project 2. I told y'all I was going to do one of these silver trays. They're not silver. They're not even plated. They're just silver in color. So I am going to do a flip on this tray. So the first thing I'm doing is cleaning it up with a baby wipe. Want to make sure you get all the dust and whatnot off of it and dry it really well. Okay, now that we're all dry, I am going to be using this beautiful fairy transfer, and I believe it is Redesign with Prima. And to match it, I'm going to be using the Waverly chalk paint in the color Celery. So I am going to put probably 2 even coats. I know it always takes at least 2 even coats for full coverage. Sometimes you have to do a little bit of touch up here and there where you might still be able to see a little bit of that silver peeking through. But normally 2 coats is usually perfectly fine. Okay, so here I am again with my heat gun, trying to help the drying process. If you don't have a heat gun, hey, a blow dryer works just as good. In fact, I think I'd rather use a blow dryer because I don't like the way I have to hold onto this heat gun. But as you can see, it is dry, and that is the first coat, and I'll have to do some cleanup around the edges. Actually, no, that is the second coat. My bad. Yes, that is the second coat. So now I am going to seal my chalk paint. And I am going to, after I clean up the edges, I will use some I think it's Rust-Oleum or Krylon clear matte sealer. Now, if your chalk paint is not dry and you try to put a transfer on it, chances are the transfer is going to pull up your paint. So it's very important that you seal your chalk paint, not with a wax, but with either a polyacrylic sealer or a spray sealer before you do your transfers. So as you can see, I'm using a wet wipe here, cleaning up all of my edges. Once I'm done doing that, I will take it outside and spray it. right, so for those of you who have never used transfers, they are really very simple to use. So you decide which ones you want to put on your project, and you cut them out. And then what you're going to do is, you will see in just a second, I am going to peel off the transfer from the white backing paper and lay the transfer down on my tray. And you want to make sure you have it exactly where you want it, because once it's down, it is down and it's not coming back up. So you definitely want to be sure you know exactly where you want to put it. So I'm kind of placing it on there with the backing still on so that I can see how I want to place it on here. Once I figure it out, I will, well, actually, I'm still looking. I'm like, do I want to use this one or do I want to use that one? You know, you have to play around with them. You know, there's a lot to choose from, and, you know, you just play around and see what looks best. And that's what I'm doing. But I do end up going back to my original pick. So I am going to peel off the white backing, and then I am going to lay it down. And then I'm going to take the transfer stick that comes with the transfers, and I am going to rub the transfer. What I do is I rub the whole thing with the transfer stick. Once I have rubbed over the whole thing, I will pick a corner of the transfer that I can lift up. And as I am lifting and pulling towards me, I will continue to rub. And that makes it a lot easier to transfer the transfer to your project. Now, as you can see, or you will see in a minute, I have no nails. So I'm having a heck of a time picking up that corner piece. See, I'm showing you, look, I have no nails. So I'm like starting to get a little aggravated here because I can't get the corner. Eventually, I end up getting my X-Acto knife to help me pick up the corners of these transfers. But anyways, so I think, did I get the corner? I'm still working on it. Oh my goodness. Look at me. I can't believe I haven't thrown the tray across the room yet. Oh my word. I'm still rubbing away. There we go. I did get it. All right. Yay! Yay for me. All right. So now, as you can see, I am pulling up the vellum that the transfer is adhered to. And little by little, I'm rubbing and pulling up that vellum. And if you see, when you start pulling up that vellum piece, if you see that there's still some of the transfer left on it, just lay it back down and continue to rub it until it comes off. And it's really that simple, guys. It is not a hard thing to do at all. Once you get your transfer on to your project, you are going to take that piece of vellum and flip it over to the side that the transfer was adhered to. And you are going to rub that transfer with that vellum paper to kind of seal it in with your paint. That's very important. Now, if you don't want to use the sheet of vellum, you can use your fingers and rub that transfer, which it's called burnishing, to burnish that transfer to your paint. Now I'm just going to look through the rest of these sheets and pick out things that I want to add to my project. All right. So now that I have all of my transfers placed where I want them, we have to seal them in. Even though we already sealed the paint before we put the transfers on, once you put transfers, you have to seal them in. And to seal these, I'm just going to use my clear wax. You could also use a spray sealer as well if you would like. But I really like the clear wax for my transfers. You could also use a polyacrylic sealer as well. So I'm just wiping the wax on, and then I will take my rag and go back and wipe off any of the excess wax. Now I wanted to add a little bit of age to the edges, so I am using DIY's Decrepid Dust. And I use this right after I put wax on because the wax will give something for the dust to stick to. So now I'm just going around the edges of the tray with the Decrepid Dust and a small paintbrush. And then once I'm done, I can go around with the same towel and clean up any place that I don't want the decrepit dust. I love using this stuff. It makes things look kind of aged and like dirt got in the crevices type, and I love that. I love how that looks. So, but if you don't like it, you definitely could leave this step out. I just think it adds a little bit of dimension to the project. And you could also do this, if you don't have decrepit dust, you could also use dark wax. You could put dark wax in the corners as well. Or you could do brown paint, like a paint wash. And this is the finished product. What do you guys think? Do you like how it came out? I really do like this. I love that that celery green paint. So this is the little chair that I purchased, and the seat was cracked right in half and duct taped from underneath. So I'm going to show you how I am going to fix this seat. So what I did is I pulled it up so that I could put Bondo all across here, and then I will push it back together and scrape off the extra Bondo that seeps out from in between the crack. And it really only takes about 10 or 15 minutes to thoroughly cure. And then I will be able to start working on the chair. All right, so here I am showing you the Bondo that I will be using. I learned about this product from Ginger Chick Rehab. I watch a lot of her videos and I learn a lot from her, and she is very talented at what she does. So I'll be sure to leave a link for her channel in the description box. But here is the cream hardener that you mix into the actual Bondo, the bonding wood filler. So you only want to mix just what you need, you know, because once it's mixed, it starts to harden, and then you're going to have a lot of waste. So just mix what you think you'll need. So here is the Bondo stuff. I'm gonna put it in the lid from my can that I used in my first thrift flip. And you just add a little bit of that cream hardener to it. You don't need a lot. So I just squeezed like maybe about a dime's worth into the Bondo. And then I am going to mix it up really well. And then I'm going to start slapping it on there. Like I said, you don't want to be critical when you're using this because, you know, it's not going to stay pliable forever. So I'm just mixing it well. And then I'm going to start slathering it on. I know my arm is in the way and I apologize, but I have to find a better way of filming. But I hope you can't hear my stomach right now because it's growling as I'm trying to do this voiceover. I'm starving. But anyways, here we are. I'm putting it on. And then I'm going to try it. Now, I have a hard time trying to get this back together. But I do get it together. And then I realize that it's a little bit crooked on the one side. So you'll see me run out of the room and I go and I get my pipe wrench because I don't have a hammer down there. I grab my pipe wrench to pound it from underneath to even it out. You know, you got to do what you got to do. And then I also grabbed a clamp. I want to clamp this together as it dries. And of course, I'm pressing the wrong handle to tighten it. But I got it. I got it. All right, so I went out to get the pipe wrench, and I'm on my way back in with it and pounding it so that it's even. So I'm going to scrape off the excess Bondo and try to make it, you know, as neat as I can, because the neater it is, the less sanding that I have to do. So I'm getting off as much as I can, and it's kind of like frosting a cake, you know. When you're frosting the two layers together, you want to make sure that you don't see the seam from the two layers. That's kind of like what I'm doing there. So once I get this all feathered in, so to speak, I'm going to let it until it's totally dry. Now, depending on where you live, it could take 10 minutes. It took mine about, I would say, between 20 to 30 minutes to harden. All right, so now that I decided to sand the whole chair. Now I am wiping it down with a wet rag, getting all the sawdust off. And then once I get it all wiped down, I'm going to let it dry before I move on to painting. I wanted to show you as well, before I paint, I'm going to put 2 coats of shellac on the chair and let that dry. Now it's time to paint. And this is Dixie Belle. I love this color. It's my favorite color. It's called Sea Glass. And it's almost the exact same color that's already on the chair, which is awesome. I believe I only had to put 1 coat of paint on this chair, with the exception of just a few little touch-up areas where I saw, maybe I was a little thin with the paint. But other than that, it was like maybe 1 1/4 coats on this chair. And of course, once I get done painting it, I will take it outside again and give it a couple coats of shellac, because I'm going to be adding transfers to this chair, and I do not want them to pull up my chalk paint. And as I mentioned, it's very important to seal your chalk paint. So I'm going to save you guys from watching me paint the chair. You've all seen, me paint. So let's move on. Okay, now I'm going to be using some molds here to add a little something to my chair. This is cornstarch, and what you're going to do is you are going to take a little paintbrush and dust the inside of your mold with the cornstarch. That will ensure that your air dry clay comes out easily without sticking. So I chose this design. This is a redesign with Prima mold. And again, I will leave everything that I used in this video in the description box, if I remember everything. So here I'm putting in my cornstarch and tapping out the excess. And now I am going to grab my air dry clay. And I use Jovi Air Dry Clay. I believe I got it off of Amazon. And I love this clay. I already have some open. I keep it in a container with a lid to keep it moist. And when you're not using your clay, like, see, I should have put my cover back on there, but I didn't. But don't do as I do. So now I'm just pushing the clay down into the mold. And what I will do is I will take, I have a long blade that I used for my polymer clay. And what I'll do is I will slide that blade across the top to take off all of the excess clay. You could use a credit card to do that, or you could use those little palette knife thingies. You could use that. It just makes it a lot easier. All right, so now I'm grabbing my blade and I am going to run it across the top of the clay to shave off the excess. Now, sometimes you'll pull out some of the clay when you do this. So, and actually that happened. So what I'm going to do is just take little bits of clay and push it in where I have clay missing. Okay, so now that I have all my clay in, I am going to flex the mold and I'm going to carefully try to roll out the mold. Normally, I don't do that. I would turn it over onto the surface and then roll back the mold slowly. But because of the cornstarch, it just kind of plopped out on my counter. So I ended up having to remold it. But anyways, yes. So it does happen. And, you know, we all make mistakes, right? So now that I have my mold, it's time to apply it to my chair. Okay, so now I have my chair in place and I am going to be gluing down the mold with Tight Bond glue. Works fantastic. I love this glue. You can also purchase this on Amazon as well. So what I did is I transferred some into a smaller squeeze bottle. It's easier on my thumbs. And what I do is I pick the mold up, lay it in my hand, and then I'm going to squeeze some glue on. And now I was a little overzealous with the glue here. So normally I would use a paintbrush instead of my finger to spread the glue out. You don't want a ton of glue because then when you put it on your project and you have to gently push on it to make sure that it's adhered, the glue will seep out if you have too much. So what I ended up doing is scraping off some of the excess glue. But now I'm placing it where I want it. And I am going to gently press it down and make sure that there's no space in between the mold and the chair. Once I have it in place, believe it or not, I am going to start painting the chair. Even though the clay is wet, I prefer to paint right over it when it's wet because it tends to crack less if you paint it when it's wet rather than waiting for it to dry and then paint it. So the mold did break in half, so I'm just gluing the other half here and I will place it on the other side. Sometimes when you have intricate molds and very thin areas, that will happen. But no worries, you can still, piece it and glue it, which is what I did here. So if there is any glue that has oozed out from underneath your mold, what I usually will do is take a baby wipe and just wipe it off. You definitely want to wipe it off. Okay, now it is time to paint. Yay! So as I said, I will be painting, I'm painting this mold the same color as the chair. If I were going to paint this mold a different color, I like to paint it before I put it on my project. I demold it and I immediately paint it whatever color I want, and then I glue it to my project. Reason being is it's a lot easier to paint it, the sides, the edges and everything, when it's off your project. Then you don't have to worry about getting a different color paint on your project. So that's normally what I do if I'm doing a different color. But here I'm using the same color, so it doesn't matter. So all I'm going to do is I'm using a very soft, pointy brush to get in all the nooks and the crannies of this mold. Now, a lot of times, once it dries, you'll see places where you missed. So all you have to do is just go in and touch up those spots. No big deal. So I'm just going to continue painting the chair, and I'll let you guys watch for a little bit. Okay, so the chair is fully painted and dry. I did take it outside and spray it with a couple coats of clear sealer, and then I let that dry very well. And now it's time to add transfers. So I figured out which ones I'm going to use on this chair. So now it's just a matter of cutting them out and deciding the placement, which is, I kind of think it takes longer to figure out your placement than it does to put the transfers on. But that's all part of the fun and the creativeness of using transfers. So I'm just kind of, positioning it in different ways and trying to figure out how I want to fit it on here. So now I've peeled it off the backing, and I'm making sure I have it exactly where I want it before I drop it down. Now I am going to go over the sides with the transfers as well. So that's why I made sure to rub them when I went over the edges. And now I'm just rubbing over them with the transfer stick, making sure to do the whole transfer before I start picking up a corner and rubbing and pulling up the vellum. Okay, so now that I have all of my transfers on, I decided to add some script to the chair using a stamp and some Stazon ink in Dove Gray. I did purchase the ink on Amazon. The script mold, you can get them anywhere. They have them on Amazon, Temu. I get a lot of my molds and stuff from Temu as well. So there's a lot of options for stamps. So I'm just inking this up with the, I didn't want to use black because I thought black was a little bit too like in your face. That's why I decided to use the gray because I wanted it to be more subtle. So now I'm going to lay it where I want it, and I'm going to hold it in place and use my fingers to press down the stamp. Now, if I was putting the whole stamp on, I would lay the stamp down, hold the stamp with one hand, and press the rest of the stamp with my fingers while holding it in place. That way it won't move on you when you're burnishing the stamp, so to speak. Now I have moved up to the top part of the chair. I'm just going to do this in a few different areas just to add a little bit more interest. All right, here's a look at today's projects, everyone.